As always, welcome back in. I'm going to be reviewing Saturday's action from the National Hockey League. There were a total of 12 games, and every Saturday there's always a lot of teams playing, which is fantastic because if you're a hockey fan, you truly do live for Saturday, and especially Saturday night. So, in no particular order, I'll be going through all the games, as always, because I'm a Habs fan. They're always the first team that I review. Doesn't necessarily mean they played the early game. I believe the early game happened between the Blues and the Bruins. But because I follow the team, just like with anyone, if you were to follow, say, the Blackhawks or the Sabres or the Red Wings or whoever it is, they'd be the top team, even if they played the very last game and the very late game. So I just want to make that very clear before I started. In the first period of the Canadiens and Blue Jackets game, Mike Matheson would open up the scoring, getting a power play goal from Cole Caulfield and Kirby Dach, 4:59, as I said, in the opening frame. Dante Fabro would get his first goal of the season from Rowensky and Kevin Labanc, 7 minutes and 40 seconds of the second, tying the game up at 2. Nick Suzuki would break the tie in the second, getting his 7th of the year from Armia and Arbrzejkai, and that goal happened with 4 minutes and 11 seconds to go on the clock. So the Habs would be up 2-1 at that point. Moving forward, Lucas Condotta, I believe, would get his first goal in the National Hockey League, I should say, assisted by Yoel Armia, who had 2 assists on the evening. 11:04 of the third, increasing the lead to 3-1. Jake Evans, who I believe played or got his, how many career points did he get? Or games? Whatever it was, there was a milestone. I apologize, would increase the lead to 4-1, getting his 3rd of the year, assisted by Cole Caulfield, 12:52 of the third. And then Josh Anderson would add on to the lead, scoring against his former team, his 4th of the season, assisted by Matheson and Lane Hudson. So Montreal would win their 2nd game in a row after defeating the Sabres, I believe, a few days ago. Can they get on a bit of a roll? We'll see. They're unfortunately still in the basement of the standings. So I did talk about this game earlier, and I will review between the Blues and the between the Boston Bruins and the St. Louis Blues. There we go. Radek Faksa would kick things off in the first, getting his 2nd of the season, assisted by Perunovich and Torpachenko. Trent Frederick would tie the game up at 1, getting his 2nd goal of the season, assisted by Merkulov and Charlie McAvoy, 9:34 of the first period. Frederick would score again, getting his 2nd goal of the game, his 3rd of the season, assisted by Lowride, 12:12 of the first. Nathan Walker would tie the game up at 2, getting his 2nd goal of the season, assisted by Faksa and Torpachenko, 9:18 of the 3rd period. This game would need to go to overtime, and the captain, Braden Shen, would get the game winner, his 3rd of the season, assisted by Pareko, 2:53 of the overtime frame. So the game-winning goal came in overtime, as I said, and the Blues would win over the Bruins. The Seattle Kraken played host to the New York Islanders. Yanni Gourde would kick things off in the first, his 1st of the year, assisted by Tanev and Carty, I believe, 8:10 of the opening frame. Pierre Engvall would tie the game up at 1, getting his 2nd of the year, assisted by Pollock and Cholowski, I believe, 13:38 of the opening frame. There's no scoring in the second. We have to jump all the way ahead to the third, where Brock Nelson would finally break the tie, getting his 7th of the season, a shorthanded goal from Dobson and Palmieri, 4:49 of the 3rd period. Jared McCann, who I had in my fantasy, thank God he scored, would get his 9th of the year from Burakovsky and Evans, 5:26 of the 3rd period, tying the game up at 2. Late in the 3rd, with just over 3 minutes to go, technically it was 3 minutes and 13 seconds, Jamie Oleksiak would break the tie, getting the game-winning goal, his 2nd of the year from Yanni Gourde and Tanev. So that would be the game-winning goal, and the Seattle Kraken would win by a final score of 3-2. The Toronto, oops, clicked on the wrong, I swiped by mistake. The Toronto Maple Leafs played host to the Edmonton Oilers. In the first period, Adam Henrique would open up the scoring, getting his second goal of the season from Janmark and Connor Brown a minute 42 into the opening frame. Bobby McMann would tie the game up, getting his fifth of the season from Tavares and Marner, 3:53 of the first. Connor McDavid would score in the second, breaking the tie, getting his seventh of the season, a power play goal from Hyman and Leon Draisaitl a minute and 51 into the middle frame. Matthew Knies would tie the game up in the third, getting his eighth of the year, unassisted, 13:08 of the third. Bobby McMann would strike again, getting his second goal of the game, his sixth of the year from Ekman Larsson, 14:07 of the third, putting the Leafs on top. Leon Draisaitl would score, tying the game up at 3, getting his 13th of the season, assisted by Nugent Hopkins and Connor McDavid, and that goal happened with a minute and 29 seconds to go. This game would go to overtime. Mitch Marner would get the goal, the game-winning goal, I should say, his sixth of the season, just 4 seconds into the overtime period. It's got a whole bunch of ads here. Tampa Bay played host to the New Jersey Devils. Nick Paul would kick things off in the first period, getting his fifth goal of the year from Gensel and Lilleberg, 14:27 of the opening frame. Darren Radish would increase the lead to 2-0, getting his first of the season from Kucherov and Cirelli, 39 seconds into the third period. Victor Hedman would add on to the lead, getting his fourth of the year, a power play goal from Kucherov and Gensel, 7 minutes and 40 seconds in the third. New Jersey had their goalie pulled. Didn't make any sense. They were already down by 3. Anthony Cirelli would get the empty netter. I'm not sure what AWD stands for, from Hagel and Hedman with just 12 seconds remaining on the clock. So ultimately, Nick Paul got the game-winning goal because obviously the Devils were shutouts. So 4-0 would be the final score in favor of Tampa Bay. Now this one here is definitely a bit of an odd score as the Florida Panthers played host to the Winnipeg Jets. Not really a headline because he's been there for 2 going on 3 seasons. But obviously, Paul Maurice going up against his former team. It would have been different if this was the first time that he was playing against his former team. But I'm pretty sure he signed with the Panthers in the summer of 2022. So the 23 campaign, 24 campaign, and now we're in the 25 campaign. So yeah, 3 seasons after he left Winnipeg, he's obviously had a lot of success in Florida, making it to 2 Stanley Cup final appearances in his first 2 years as their coach, and obviously winning it this past spring. Mackie Samskevich, I believe, would open up the scoring in the first period with 5 minutes to go, getting his third of the year from Forsling and Greer. And the other thing to take away from this game was how Winnipeg started Connor Hellebuck, who's obviously had a hell of a season so far. And I mean, I'm sure he'll have a bounce back game the next time he plays. But after letting in as many goals as he did, considering how hot he's been, it's definitely a little concerning. But I mean, every player goes through bumps and everyone has a bad game. So I guarantee he'll bounce back in his next stint. Nate Schmidt would add on to that lead, getting his third of the year from Bennett and Reinhart, 2 minutes and 7 seconds in the second period. Evan Rodriguez would increase the lead to 3-0, getting his fifth of the year from Barkov and Ekblad, 12:21 of the second frame. Barkov would increase the lead to 4-0, getting a shorthanded goal, his third of the year from Reinhardt and Forsling, 14:36 of the second period. And Dmitry Kulikov would score in the third, getting his third of the year from Barkov and Reinhardt, 3:23 of the third period. So the Panthers would shut out the best team in the league, the Winnipeg Jets. The Philadelphia Flyers played host to the Buffalo Sabres. And the first, Tyson Forster would open up the scoring, getting his third goal of the year, a power play goal from Richard and Farabee, 13:57 of the opening frame. Travis Sanheim would increase the lead to 2-0, getting his fifth goal of the year from Zamula and Konechny, 16:01 of the first. Igor Zamula would get his first of the year from Richard and Michkov, 2:08 of the second frame. Increasing the lead to 3-0 at that point. Travis Konechny would get on the goal scorer sheet himself, getting his 10th of the year from Michkov and Sanheim, 17:07 of the second period, giving the Flyers a 4-0 lead. Rasmus Dahlin would finally get the Sabres on the board in the third, getting his fifth of the season, a power play goal from Tuck and Zucker, 10:06 of the third. Ryan McLeod would cut the lead in half, getting his sixth of the year from Baturk and Dahlin, and that goal happened with 1 minute and 5 seconds on the clock. The Sabres would pull their goalie down by 2. Unfortunately, it did not work out. Travis Konechny would get his second goal of the night, his 11th of the season, an empty netter, assisted by Sean Couturier. So they would go on to win 5-2. The Pittsburgh Penguins played host to the San Jose Sharks. Brian Rust would kick things off in the first, getting his fifth goal of the season from Bunting and Malkin, 1 minute and 1 second into the opening frame. Jesse Puljujarvi would increase the lead to 2-0, assisted by O'Connor and Pickering, 6:34 of the first period. Sidney Crosby would increase the lead to 3-0, getting his 7th of the year, assisted by Carlson and Beauvillier, 4:19 of the second frame. Tyler Toffoli would finally get the Sharks on the board in the second, getting his 7th of the year from Will Smith, a power play goal with 7 minutes and 55 seconds to go in the middle period. Michael Granlund would cut the lead to 3-2, getting his 8th of the year from Zetterlund and Eklund, 6:56 of the third. And Toffoli would strike again, getting his second goal of the game, his 8th of the year from Dellandrea and Wallman, 11:40 of the third period. This game would need overtime. Unfortunately, nobody would be able to score. Evgeny Malkin will go on to get the shootout winner. So despite the fact that Penguins blew a 3-0 lead, they were able to hold on for a 4-3 shootout win. The Ottawa Senators were in Carolina to take on the Hurricanes. Jordan Martinook would kick things off in the first, getting his 6th goal of the year, assisted by Jordan Staal, exactly 8 minutes into the opening frame. It's a shame about these ads. I can't stand how they're in the middle of the view. And I'm only showing one goal per game now instead of showing every single one. And what I'm trying to do is just show the game-winning goals instead of going through every single one. Sebastian Aho would increase lead to 2-0, getting his 4th of the year from Nietzsche and Shane Gothenburg. And that goal happened with 42 seconds to go in the second. In the third, Jackson Blake would increase lead to 3-0, getting a power play goal from Svechnikov and Shane Gothenburg just 43 seconds into the third. The Sens would pull their goalie with about 5 minutes to go, down by 3, but unfortunately, they were not able to capitalize. William Carrier would get the empty netter, his 2nd of the season, assisted by Staal and Martinook. So the Canes would shut out the Sens 4-0. A battle of the Central Division, as we have the 2nd and 3rd team respectively, in the standings at least, duking it out, the Dallas Stars and the Minnesota Wild. In the first period, Mason Marchand would give the Stars a 1-0 lead, getting his 5th of the season, assisted by Lyubushkin and Tyler Seguin, 18:43 of the first period. There was no scoring in the second. If you jump all the way ahead to the third, where Marchand would strike again, getting his second goal of the night, his sixth of the season from Steele and Lyubushkin. 11:24 of the third period. Kirill Kaprizov would get the Wild on the board in the third with 5 minutes and 50 seconds to go, getting his 11th of the season from Spurgeon and Boldy. Unfortunately, the Wild were not able to mount a comeback, so 2-1 would be the final score in favor of the Stars. Now we're off to Los Angeles as the Kings played host to the Detroit Red Wings. Late in the first, with 1 minute and 55 seconds remaining, Mikey Anderson would put the Kings up 1-0, getting his third goal of the year from Deneau and Moore. Tanner Janot would increase the lead to 2-0, getting his second goal of the season from Lewis and Hellenius, I believe, and that goal happened with 1 minute 33 remaining in the first. Adrian Kempe would get his 8th of the year from Foegele and Gavrikov 15 seconds into the third period, making it 3-0 at that point. Dylan Larkin would finally get the Red Wings on the board with 1 minute 27 seconds to go, getting his 10th of the year from DeBrincat and Tarasenko. The Red Wings would pull their goalie down by 2. Unfortunately, they were not able to capitalize. Adrian Kempe would get the empty netter, his 9th of the season from Kopitar and Trevor Lewis. So Janot would be the one who would end up getting the game-winning goal. And of course, there's an ad. There's a beautiful tip-in pass for those that can't tell. I really wish I could just get the ads on the bottom. I don't understand why they have to be in the middle. It just drives me nuts. And the last game from Saturday took place in Vancouver as the Canucks played host to the Blackhawks. Ilya Mikheyev would score against his former team, putting the Blackhawks up 1-0, getting his second of the season, assisted by Foligno and Allen, 6:50 of the opening period. Elias Pettersson would tie it in the second, getting his 5th goal of the year from Miller and Hughes. 4:56 into the middle frame. Eric Brandstrom would break the tie in the third, getting his 2nd of the season from Sherwood and DeBrusk, 4:25 of the third. JT Miller would get an empty net goal. The Blackhawks were down by 2 with 2 minutes to go. Miller would strike, getting his 6th of the season from Pius Sutter, and that goal happened with 1 minute 54 to go. Teddy Bluegar would get an empty net goal himself, assisted by Garland and Heinen. For Bluegar, that'd be his 3rd goal of the year, and that goal happened just Miller scored. So the Canucks would go on to win by a final score of 4-1. So taking a look at the wild card standings, I will see if I can scroll down. There we go. In the Atlantic Division, the Florida Panthers are still on top with a record of 12-5-1. They have 25 points. The Toronto Maple Leafs are right on their tail, though. They are 11-6-2. They have 24 points. The Tampa Bay Lightning are in 3rd place with a record of 9-6-1. They have 19 points. In the Metropolitan, we have the New Jersey Devils atop of that division with a record of 12-7-2. They have 26 points. The Hurricanes are 12-4-0. They have 24 points, just 2 points behind the Devils. And the Washington Capitals are 11-4-1. They have 23 points. They're just a point behind the Hurricanes. The 2 teams in the wild card are 2 original 6 teams, as the Rangers are 10-4-1. They have 21 points, just 2 points behind the Caps. And the Boston Bruins are 8-3. They have 19 points. They're tied with Tampa Bay, but because Tampa has 1 more win, that's why Tampa's in 3rd place as we speak. And then rounding out the rest of the Eastern Conference, it looks like this. The Flyers have climbed the standings, to say the least, considering they were near the bottom. They're 8-2. They have 18 points. They're just a point behind the Bruins. The Islanders also have 18 points with a record of 7-7-4. 3 teams are tied for 17 points. The Ottawa Senators are 8-8-1. The Sabres are 8-9-1. And the Penguins are 7-10-3. The Detroit Red Wings are 7-9-1. They have 15 points. And the Blue Jackets and the Canadiens have 14 points respectively. But because Montreal has one more loss, the Blue Jackets are ahead of them in the standings. They are 6-9-2. And the Habs are 6-10-2. Okay, now we're looking at the Central Division, as Winnipeg Jets, despite losing, are still in first place of that division with a record of 15-3-0. They have 30 points. It's still very, very impressive after 18 games that they have won 15 of those. The Minnesota Wild, despite losing to Dallas, are 11-3-3. They have 25 points. And the Stars are 11-5-0. They have 22 points. The Vegas Golden Knights are back on top of the Pacific Division with a record of 11-4-2. They have 24 points. The Kings are right on their tail, though. They are 10-6-3. They have 23 points. And rounding out the top three of that division are the Vancouver Canucks. They are 9-4-3. They have 21 points. The two teams in the wild card are the two teams from Alberta. The Calgary Flames are in wild card position 1 with a record of 9-6-3. They have 21 points, while the Edmonton Oilers are in the wild card 2 spot. They have a record of 9-7-2. They have 20 points. And rounding out the rest of the Western Conference, looks like this. The Seattle Kraken are 9-8-1. They have 19 points. They're just a point behind the Oilers. The Colorado Avalanche are 9-9-0. They have 18 points. They're 2 points out of a playoff spot. The Utah Hockey Club are 7-7-3. They have 17 points. St. Louis also has 17 points with a record of 8-9-1. The Ducks and Sharks both have 14 points respectively. Anaheim sitting at 6-8-2, while the San Jose Sharks are 5-10-4. The Blackhawks and Predators are in last place of the Western Conference respectively with 13 points. Chicago is 6-11-1. While the Predators are 5-10-3. I can't say how disappointed I am. I'm sure a lot of Preds fans are very disappointed to seeing where they're at after 18 games in the season. Now, I say this after every video that there's still a long season to go. And whenever I think of teams in last place that came out of their funk, the St. Louis Blues definitely come to mind back in 2019. I think they're in last place at like the middle of January or the end of January. And they went on this crazy hot run and obviously went on to win the Stanley Cup. Now, I'm not saying that that's the same story for the Nashville Predators, but you can't really count them out. But at this point, they're 7 points out of the playoff spots. They basically would need to go on a 4-game winning streak and hope that teams from Seattle to Chicago also go on 4-game losing streaks of their own. And that's a tall task to order. So you can't rely on other teams to lose. You have to rely on yourself to win. So that's where I stand with my little rant about the Preds' horrendous start to the season. Okay, that's going to take care of Saturday's recap from the National Hockey League season. As always, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, feel free to hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative. Until next time, and as always, take care.